my journey that has led me to Madison. You'll find out a little later on in the presentation that my journey has been full circle. And so you'll find out about that a little bit later. And then obviously I want to take some time to do some dialogue. There may be some questions that you have about me, about my personal philosophy, what I have going on within the department. And so I want to give you an opportunity to do that with me. I will say that I am honored and privileged every day to wake up in what I think is the greatest city in America right now. That is Madison. So if you don't know that, you need to get out and see some of these other cities as I have, and you will know that you are in the best place to be. I live downtown, and I love walking to work. I love the neighborhood feel, and it really feels like home to me because it is home to me. And I appreciate the fact that you have welcomed me into your community as a community member and as a neighbor. So I'm going to share my screen, and I only have 2 slides. I'm going to go over a slide that some of you may have seen before, depending on if you've been on another meeting with me, about who I am. I call it behind the badge, because please note that leadership is about who you are as a human being before it's about management, budgeting, and finance. I think it's so very important that, as the leader of public safety in Madison, you know who this person is behind the badge. You have to know that I'm someone who was raised the right way, I think. Hard work, do what you say you're going to do, be a good person, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And really, there's no formula, I think, for a police chief. And certainly, if there is a formula, I didn't subscribe to it, and so I want to go over that with you and let you know that my background. And then I want to talk a little bit about my personal philosophy as a police chief. These are the things that I explained to the Police Fire Commission back in December and November of last year that made them think that I would be a good fit for Madison. So let me see if I can get this right. All right. So hopefully everyone can see that as we try to get it to, there you go. So I've been a police chief here in Madison for just a little over 100 days. And I started February 1, but my journey began many months and years before that. So I want to take you on that journey. So we'll do a little photo show and tell. So we'll go left to right. The photo that you see of this young man here with the brown shirt and what looks like a caterpillar over my lip is my attempt to grow a mustache. I was trying to make myself look older than I actually was in my 20s many years ago. I came to policing from public education. I was a public school teacher. I was a history teacher. I taught U.S. history and world civilization for the 9th grade and 11th grade levels in a public high school in northeastern North Carolina. Prior to that, I had spent 1 year as a middle school teacher teaching a course called North Carolina History that was required curriculum in middle school. And prior to that, I was a Head Start teacher at a Head Start in Elizabeth City for underprivileged kids, teaching them how to read, teaching them to love read, we're reading to them, teaching them the love of books, the love of history. And so part of my DNA is that I've always been drawn to kids and to our youth. And so I have a youth advisory board now, and I'm very proud of it. We met yesterday, and they do inform the chief of police. I feel it's very important to give them a voice because some of those young men and women will leave us. They'll go to college. We want them to return. We want people to bring their talents back to Madison. And one way we do that is by investing in them at a very young age. I am the product of people who cared about me just enough to give me a job at a restaurant washing dishes, to give me, a nice tie when I finished school, so I could go for a job interview. People who cared enough to pull me aside and say, keep doing what you're doing and encourage me. And we have to do that for our young people. And I know we talk a lot about mentorship, but I think apprenticeship is just as important as being a mentor. Because when you can teach someone a skill, you let them know that they have a place in your community. And I don't know about you, but I want to keep our talents here in Madison, don't you? You know, I want the next billionaire or millionaire or philanthropist or just the next person with a big heart who wants to help our unsheltered population to do it here in Madison and not to think that they have to go somewhere else. Now, here's a trivia question for someone. In this picture, I'm wearing a brown shirt. These brown shirts were really old shirts that they had in the closet from when our chief back in the late 60s, early 70s, David Williams, he changed us from brown shirts to an all black uniform, right? David Williams loved the LAPD, right? I think everyone did back in those days. He thought that the LAPD was, quite frankly, the best police department ever, and he wanted us to look like the LAPD. Now, for those of you who have ever been to LA, you will know that the LAPD, like Madison, their uniform isn't black. It's actually blue. So why would David Williams put the Greensboro Police Department in all black uniforms, even though they wore blue? Why would he do that? Anyone have a guess on why and then we still wear black, they still wear black to this day. Mike, you have a guess?
I'm thinking he doesn't. I don't know. You know, maybe he never wants you to feel too comfortable. It must be hot there, North Carolina, in black in the summer, right? So
it is unreal hot. So Dave Williams had never actually been to LA, but he did have a black and white television, as most people did back in those days. He actually thought their uniform was black. So Greensboro is one of the very few departments in the entire country where the police wear black. And that's why, because Dave Williams wouldn't invest in a color television. I don't know what year color televisions came out, to be honest with you, but apparently he didn't think it was a good investment at the time. Does anyone remember black and white television?
Oh, yeah.
A couple of us do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's why we do that. So that was the very first day I got my badge when I was sworn in. On that day, I told myself that I would use my badge. That's why I'm holding it that way. I said I would use my badge to help people who otherwise wouldn't be helped if I didn't come along. And that's really what policing is all about. That's what your life has been all about. I guarantee you that there are people that you probably don't even remember, Jane, that you've helped and you don't even remember that you did it because that's who you are as a person. That's why I like being a police officer. It really is. For me, it was never about taking people to jail, even though I got pretty good at it. It was never about chasing people down, even though I absolutely loved it. It was really about those times where I could get on one knee and talk to a kid or talk to a person and help them. So that was me in Greensboro. The picture next to it is I'm a blue blood. So that's my brother. He's my little brother, but I like to remind him every Thanksgiving that I'm taller than he is. And as you can see in that picture, I am the tallest of the two because he's my little brother. But he's a police officer, began his career in Asheville, North Carolina. Asheville is a city that has a lot of similarities to Madison, believe it or not. And if you've never got an opportunity to visit the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina, you should definitely do that. It'll definitely change your life. Visit the Biltmore. So we're blue bloods. I have a younger sister. She's a daycare provider. So that's myself and my brother. The day I was sworn in as a deputy chief of police in Salisbury, North Carolina. Salisbury is just north of Charlotte, our largest city. The picture at the top is that's me in Selma, Alabama. That was almost a year ago in August. I traveled to Selma with two of my police friends from California and from Texas. And, we did not get an opportunity to process everything that was going on with police community relations as a leader. We just couldn't. We had to manage police departments. We had to focus police officers. We had to keep up morale, keep people from leaving. But we wanted to do something. And so we traveled to Selma, Alabama, and we sat in Brown AME Chapel with Pastor Leota Strong, and he allowed us full access to their archives. And so we began to learn firsthand about the accounts of Bloody Sunday, 1965. And for someone who has an undergraduate degree in history, I was in hog heaven. And I was literally, I'm sorry, that's a Southern term meaning very, very happy. But I was very happy. I was looking through their archives, and I had an opportunity to see handwritten notes from John Lewis, handwritten notes from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who, as you know, pastored Dexter AME, which is just up the road in Montgomery. And so the following day, we took the journey. We walked 54 miles from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. It took us 2.5 days to do that. And there were some things that I learned along the way that I think helped to make me a better person. Number one, a better father, a better husband, and a better chief of police. The first thing that I learned is that people want to be seen, not just looked at. They want to be seen and they want to be acknowledged. During that walk, I had people who stopped by and said, "Hey, I saw you walking yesterday. I saw you walking this afternoon. I saw you walking the other day. What are you guys up to? Are you okay? How can I help you?" And it just helped to reinforce that the America you see on TV, the America that you see on CNN or Fox News is not the America that I know. The America that I know is that when 3 African-American people are walking in the Alabama August sun, by the way, people stop to check on you. White, black, male, female, it didn't matter. People want to be seen. And although I didn't see their cars going by, back and forth, they saw me. And so I learned from that, people want to be seen. I see you. The second thing that I learned is that people want to know that you understand what they're going through. We had several people who stopped us along the way to share their story and their frustrations, not only with America, but with Alabama. They wanted to share their frustrations of the inequities that they see in this country. Why people don't invest in the South. Why do people come to Selma, Alabama and shoot a movie, and when you leave, the movie makes millions of dollars and the city looks the same? And I listened to that, and I came from that. I hear you. People want to know that you understand their frustrations. And I think when we ignore people, when we turn a blind eye to what people are saying, whether we agree or not, we're not fulfilling our true potential as Americans. So as your police chief, yes, I have people who email me and call me and say very bad things about the police, but I listen and I acknowledge what they're saying. And the other thing is, even when people support me, I listen to that as well. I listen to the police. I listen to that perspective as well. And then the last thing is, I am accountable to you. People stopped and wanted to literally make sandwiches for us, right? So they would see us walking. I wouldn't see them. They would go to a gas station because there's nothing along that route that looks like a restaurant. They'd go to a gas station and they'd get bread, they'd get peanut butter. They'd come back and in the trunk of their cars would open it and try to feed us right then and there on the highway. I call that accountability. And everyone asked me about juvenile crime. They asked me about violent crime. What are you going to do, Chief? And the answer is, what are we going to do? If we don't start holding each other accountable, I fear that we will never live to our true potential. Some of you may remember the days when your neighbors could grab you by the ear. I mean that with love, because I know, and bring you home if they saw you misbehaving. I remember those days. And I don't think anyone was trying to hurt me. I think people were trying to hold themselves accountable as community members and trying to hold my parents accountable for the way I was behaving and making sure that we had what I call a true sense of community. And so those are three things that I really learned. And I could go on and on about that, but I understand America a little bit better by taking that journey. At the bottom is my family. This is Ashley. She's our oldest. Ashley's 24. She's a graduate student at Cal Arts studying dance choreography in California. She's at home now because of the summer, but she'll be leaving us soon. My son, Aiden, who's going to the 7th grade. Myself, my daughter, Madison, she's the youngest, she's the baby. You will be hard pressed to find a photo where Addison is not next to me. She literally has me wrapped around her birthday is tomorrow. So obviously it's a national holiday around our home. And then this is my wife, Stephanie. My wife is Dr. Stephanie Dance Barnes. She is the Dean of the College of Health and Science at DePaul in Chicago. My wife is, I call it a piece of history, although she never acknowledged it. But my wife is the first person to get a dual PhD in cancer biology and toxicology at the same time from Wake Forest University. And so she is living her dream. My wife, as a dean, is putting together a PA school and then a medical school for DePaul University. I honor my wife when I say, we give our charity to Susan G. Komen. My wife has received several prestigious awards from Susan G. Komen, and Susan G. Komen helped my wife with her education. So my wife studies breast cancer prevention. And I think that breast cancer affects everyone, right? It's not just a female disease, and she's working hard to keep women healthy. So keep her in your thoughts if you can. The picture at the top, we talked about full circle, is my mother in 1976 in front of Lake Monona. Now, how did that happen? So my uncle, Lorenzo Barnes, was a student at UW-Madison in the 70s. And he was a young pastor at Mount Zion Baptist Church here in Madison. He lived in Madison his entire life and recently moved to Merrill, Wisconsin. I could be pronouncing that wrong, where his retirement home is. And so as little sisters do, she followed her big brother, along with her adorable 2-year-old son, by the way, which would have been me in 1976, to Wisconsin to try to find a better life. She was not able to complete the journey, and we returned home. I had totally forgotten about the story until I shared with my mother that I was a finalist for the police chief job here. So she pulled out that photo and a postcard. Who remembers postcards? That was time stamped from her time here in Madison, where she had wrote home to my grandmother about her experiences here. And I just share that with you to let you know that sometimes in life, your season will come. 1976 was not my mother's season to be in Madison, Wisconsin. Financially, she couldn't do it as a young single mother. She was a teenage mom at that time. My mother's 19 in that picture, by the way. And I'm 2 years old. So that would have been tough, right? I couldn't imagine. But she went home, and my mother is a physical therapist. She's retired now, and now she works in a public school system, helping children with different abilities get from class to class. But now my mother can come to Madison anytime she wants, and she never has to worry about money. So that is a blessing. The picture at the bottom is my stepfather who raised me. My father literally met my mother when she returned from Madison. So everything happens for a reason. My father was a small businessman. He owned a body shop and mechanic shop. He had a couple of tow trucks. He did record by rotation for our local law enforcement. So I've really been around police officers my whole entire life. My father passed away in 2018 as a result of a traffic accident, automobile accident during the icy roads there in North Carolina. And I went home to get my father's effects in order. And I realized that my father had no debt. He didn't owe anyone any money, right? He's nothing but a liability to my family. There was no bills that have ever come to my house. The only thing that's come to my house is life insurance and things of that nature. So my father has this business. He doesn't have a lot of employees, He has maybe 3 or 4 employees, a couple of trucks, things of that nature, right? Property, equipment. And my father did not advertise. He didn't have a business card. I had to beg him to get a cell phone. He wasn't on television. He didn't have a billboard. So the question is, and if anybody wants to jump in and have a dialogue, how do you have a successful business without advertising? How do you do that? How do you put 3 kids through college, raise 2 police officers, and you don't advertise for your business? And I think for me, the answer is trust. My father really figured out community trust. And my father was known to do a couple of things. Number one, he gave away more services than he ever asked for in money, quite frankly. Some of our arguments when I became an adult was, why are you charging so little for your services? If they go to the dealership, they're charged twice as much. And he said, because my community can't afford it. I said, well, Dad, that's their problem, I said, I have to take mine to the dealership. He's like, no, that's not good business, right? Number 2, he did what he said he was going to do, and the quality of his work was always great. My father never upsold people on services that they didn't need. They knew if he said it was this problem, that's what happened. That's what he fixed. And so I realized that that's in my DNA. As a police officer, I never believed in being in over-policing. I never believed in charging people for crimes that was unnecessary. I always believed in trying to work through problems instead of looking to take everyone to jail. I tried during my course of my career to do what was best for everyone involved in lieu of what the rules were from time to time. And certainly always being a person of my word is something that I think is very important for every leader as you deal with employees. And so this is just a look behind the badge of who I am and what I want to bring to Madison. What I tried to explain to the Police Fire Commission were these 4 things. Number 1, I believe that every officer has to have a neighborhood and every neighborhood has an officer. When I do ride-alongs with officers, I say, is this your neighborhood? They'll say, yes, Chief. I'll say, who's the oldest person on this neighborhood and who just had a baby? If you can answer those 2 questions, then guess what? You are a neighborhood police officer. Now, we do have officers with the title of neighborhood-oriented police officer. But in my opinion, every officer, including me, I am a community policing officer. I don't subscribe to just because you work over here, you're not connected.
Right. What's up?
The second thing is partnership policing. I believe that what we're doing here today is real police work. Community policing, community partnerships is real police work. When I ask officers to do something and they say we don't have time, I say, we have a bank robbery. Are you going to say we don't have time? Well, no, this is real police work. And I've always believed that. I believe in action listening. If there's something that we need to do as a community, I want to report back to you. I've always been known as someone who had tremendous follow through, meaning if we set an agenda item, we will not leave until we fix it.
That sounds fine.
That's very important to me. And then lastly is technology.
All right.
I love reading. I love reading about the great things that many police departments are doing. But more importantly, I want people to read about the Madison Police Department. Some of you probably know this already, but in my 100 days, I've been on CNN twice, and each time the interview they rerun it because I want to tell people about Madison. And so, yes, public relations is a big part of what I do, having people to understand this community. And who knows, some business may see that and say, hey, I want to put my business, I want to bring 100 jobs to a community where people feel safe. I want to bring 100 jobs to a community where the police are working with the community, where they're trying to innovate, because I believe that innovation helps us to predict and or create the future. Innovation helps us to create the future, and I want to do that. I want to use technology to reduce the footprint of police where we don't need police. And I certainly want to make sure that with the officers that I have, 479 officers, we are in the right place at the right time. So those are the things that I shared with the Police Fire Commission, and they seem to like it because fortunately I am here with you now. So I will take a breath, take a pause, and we can maybe get into some dialogue if you wish.
Chief, I thought I'd chime in here. I read your blog post yesterday, and over half of the day was in priority status. Maybe could you take just a second to explain what that means? When officers are only available for priority calls.
So what happens is we get busy from time to time, and usually it's persons calling 911. And obviously, it's not first come, first serve, as you know. It's almost like a triage if you were to go to an emergency room. That triage we call our priorities. So our priority one calls where someone's life is in danger or they're injured, they must take precedent over someone who perhaps had a flower pot stolen off of their front porch. Now, that's not to say that that flower pot is not important, but what it says is we can wait to respond to that. Now, in order to reduce that, we have to do one of two things. We can either add more people or we can have better prioritization of what we do. And so we try to do a little combination of both. Sometimes we have more people working than we do at other times. And then sometimes what we do is we make sure that we prioritize and we only go to those calls where people need help immediately. Not to say that all of those calls were persons who were injured. That's just one example. Now, there's no police chief, I think, that will tell you they want less cops. And certainly I won't do that either. I would be telling a fib if I said I don't want more cops. That's not true. But what I do want is the best, well-trained police officers that we can have to serve our community. This is the capital city of a great state, and I think our police department should be well-funded. I think we should have the tools that we need. I think we should be the example for other police departments, and that's certainly my goal. My vision is that the Madison Police Department will be a national model for exceptional policing through our commitment to selfless public service, community partnerships, and evidence-based policing practices. And I think we do that by having a workforce that's well-staffed and well-funded.
Thanks, Chief. Who else
I
has
would
a
like
question?
to know what you do with a person who has a mental health problem.
What we do with them. This is a question I get every day. There's two questions that I get every day. This is the second one. But so what we do is we have well, first of all, let me say that our officers are very well trained to deal with people with mental wellness issues. There's a narrative that we're not trained. If you look at the hours that our officers, from the time they are in the academy to the time they get out, I guarantee you we have more mental wellness training hours than the average teacher, than the average nurse, and probably the average social worker. So I kind of want to clear that up just a little bit, because I think that people think that we're not trained, but they are. The second thing I will say is it depends on what the problem is sometimes it's connecting that person to services, it's convincing them to go on their own, it's answering questions from a family member about what comes next. Sometimes it's about just waiting, sitting, and talking. And sometimes it's about protecting that person from harming themselves or someone else. And so when someone says mental health or mental wellness calls, there's a myriad of reasons why we may respond. It's also important to know that for the last probably 8 years, we have mental wellness professionals in our police department. We've always had that. We have social workers, and every district that does follow up and when they're available will answer calls regarding mental wellness. And there are people who don't know that. And that's on us. Shame on us for not, being better at public relations. But we do have that. Now we're piloting, or the city is piloting, the STAR Cahoots model, but they're only doing that in the isthmus. So they're not doing it everywhere. And so, once they get up and rolling, they'll be responding to calls, but they won't be responding at night, and they won't be responding to the entire city. And so there's never going to be a time where police officers won't be involved in mental wellness challenges. And I think that some of the issues that we've seen involving police and citizens that may go wrong, not all of those are mental wellness issues. Some of those are substance abuse, and some of those are simply situations where anger gets the best. But I can't speak for those agencies, right? I can only speak for what we're doing at the Madison Police Department. We're certainly willing to work with anyone who wants to work with us on mental wellness. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. The isthmus, is that just the Capitol Police? Is that what you said?
No, it's just that the area of downtown, I guess we would call it our central police district. So we have 6 districts, and the pilot program will not be in every district, is what I was trying to say. But the fire department is leading that initiative.
All right, thank you.
I thought I'd chime in just a second. If you're interested in knowing more about the mental health program, Officer Ryan Jennison gave an excellent presentation last October at the Triad Conference. Just search for Triads of Dane County and go to the playlist under Triad Conference, and you'll find an hour with Officer Jennison. He did a terrific presentation. Okay, who else?
I just want to jump in and thank Chief Barnes for coming to Madison. And it sure, looks, listening to your background and your ideas, that you really are a great fit, and that the city police department is going to be in really good hands with you. So welcome to Madison, and thank you for coming.
Yes, sir. I certainly appreciate that. And thank you for welcoming me and my family to this community.
I just want to make a comment, more of a kudo to the police department. In our neighborhood, we had a neighbor who was having some mental health issues. He came over to our house, and in the middle of the night, thinking we were trying to contact him, and the police department handled it very well. And I have had experience in my professional life working with mental health liaison officers, and it's wonderful. So I'm hoping the word gets out more, how that's available to individuals and neighborhoods, because it's well needed and a good service. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate you saying that. And certainly, we need your support, to put in a shameless plug. We have budget season coming up, and I will tell you, there will be many people who I think will call in and give their opinion as to why the police department should not be funded. And I need your support to stay in and to stay informed. So when those presentations come, people can call in as speakers from the floor and show your support, not for me, and certainly not for anyone in particular, but for just the fact that the men and women of our police department, they really want to do a good job. They just do. And I can assure you that I wouldn't be here, or you would know, if I interacted or encountered anyone with a heart against people, right? And that's just not the case. It's just not. They love talking to people. They love getting out with the community. They love serving. They love the foot patrols that we're doing now. And to me, that's the best part of police work. When they have a choice of not arresting someone, they always go with the non-arrest. But we don't know how to track that, right? How do you track what doesn't happen? How do you say, I probably could have taken him to jail, but I didn't. I can't ask them to track that. But I think they do a really good job. And during this time of COVID fatigue, during this time of, let me tell you about the department last year. Last year we had officers get COVID and really struggle with that. People don't know that. Some people don't know that last January we had an officer commit suicide. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that officers were resigning because they felt it was the best thing for their mental health. They don't know that. And they want to sometimes show a single story of police. And I will tell you that no person, I think, is the sum of their worst day, and that no thing is just one thing, right? And so that's something that we have to make sure that we do. So I would really appreciate your support on that. And I see Bonnie put something in the chat in case you're interested. So Janet?
Had on the mute button. Thank you. What I wanted to say is I live in the West District, and we have started seeing the officers out on foot patrol. I think initially, several of the residents, were worried, oh, something's going on. But I think the officers that we've encountered have been very, very friendly, engaging, willing to answer questions. So I think we're looking forward to that. On the other hand, I did have one of the neighbors said, well, and this has to do with the budget. Well, if they've got time to walk around in our neighborhood, maybe they don't need more officers. So I think that's, we appreciate them in the neighborhood and being visible. And I think it makes us all feel better. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's that is, I see your comment, Paul. I'll get to you in just a second. But yeah, foot patrols, that's real police work. That's real police work. And it's important to note that we implement what's called the COPA curve, which says that if you can spend 15 minutes doing something proactive, whether on foot or in your vehicle, you can have an hour of efficacy after you leave. So when they say that, tell them that the foot patrols are only 15 minutes. It's when they aren't answering calls for service. So I guess it's all about how hurts my heart to hear that, but yeah, I understand. but that's part of police work, right? We've got time to go to a bank robbery. Then we have time to do community engagement because it's all police work. Beth?
Hi, Chief Barnes. My name is Beth Freeman. I'm the manager of Adult Protective Services here with Dane County Human Services. And I just wanted to thank you for your discussion and presentation today, and also to share my experience in working with your mental health officers, and especially Sarah Shimko and Sergeant Shimko and some of the others. I think we've really been able to establish some really good collaborative relationships and communication that have helped maybe divert some situations that could have become more troublesome had we not had our relationships together. So I do just really want to reinforce and thank you for the role of the mental health officers in our community, because I know in our work, they can be integral partners in helping to keep people safe in their homes and in the community. So I just wanted to reinforce that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Paul?
Chief, we've talked before. I just want to thank you and welcome you again. And we have a little bit of a public forum here. Before I ask my question, I'll just make a statement, and then you can comment on it if you want. But we share a history in North Carolina. In Greensboro, we happen to have attended the same college at different times. I was there in 1972, and I forget when you were there, if you want to comment about that. I love North Carolina. Just, it's a beautiful state, and the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Blue Ridge Mountains are just gorgeous. So that said, question, many of us know that there's an event looming, and that is the town of Madison is going to go away, and that MPD is going to be providing public safety services. And I'm wondering if you have any update you can share as to the mayor's plans for staffing or funding the staffing. I know it's kind of a coming out of left field. I'm not exactly sure where it's at right now. I've heard rumors. If there's any comments about where it's at this point.
Sure, absolutely. First, thank you for that, Paul, and it's certainly good to see you again. Looking well. So Paul was speaking of North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. It's an engineering and math school down in North Carolina. And so Paul and I and Francis Huntley Cooper, we all share that somewhere we were educated at. It's a great school. In addition to the town of Madison. So we presented to the mayor several options for taking over the town of Madison. It will happen before the annexation date. And it will have to, because the officers are leaving. We had 6 apply for us. I think we're going to take 2. And so the other 4 have really no incentive on staying. So what happens when that happens? So the fire department currently has a contract with the town of Madison, and they're helping with fire services. I don't know enough about it to speak on it. I just know that they are helping out at this time. I've asked the mayor to include in her executive budget 8 officers, 6 patrol officers, 1 detective, and 1 supervisor for the town of Madison. That is the bare bones minimum that I think we need to police that. I would like to have asked for more, but quite frankly, I need to get something as opposed to nothing. Honestly, I think they need 12, but the formula that we put is the formula that says, how many officers do you need to give the officers 15 minutes of unobligated time relative to their calls for service. I like to give the officers 30 minutes of unobligated time. So that's why you see officers are able to do foot patrols, is because we have a formula worked out that says, based on the number of officers we have now, every officer should have 15 minutes out of every hour where you're not answering a call for service. That's why they can do the 15-minute foot patrols, just in case anyone needed further clarification on that. Paul, I have not heard back from her yet on whether it will be included in her executive budget. We're currently now going through the operating budget exercise. She's asked for a 5% cut for every department head, and then a supplemental budget request on top of that. And so we're working through that now, and I would love to at some point come back and fill you in on that. Obviously, the memo will be public record whenever we send it, and I'm certain it will garner some questions. It will, because there are some tough decisions that I'll have to make in order to get to $5 million. And anyone who's ever completed budgeting, you know, there's only one way to do that.
Thank you.
Jim?
Yeah, Chief, do you think that Madison will ever be equipped with body cameras? And what's your feeling about that? I personally think there's no better police department in the country to wear body cameras than Madison, because we're going to see the quality of service that they're giving people every day.
You're right about that. Well, at least I agree with you on that, Jim. And, you know, it makes you think, why do we not want body-worn cameras if that is the case? It's important to note that I do believe that City Council are moving closer to the discussion. And, you know, I'm new to the Madison community. I have been told that sometimes items can be discussed and rediscussed and then discussed again in Madison. I don't know that to be the case. I'm just a messenger, but I think it can be done, right? I think the cost of body-worn cameras, the cost-benefit analysis of body-worn cameras is to our benefit. When people are more civil because they know they're being recorded, everyone wins. When citizens are able to calm themselves down and you can work through problems, everyone wins on that. When a citizen says, I don't like the way I was treated, and you can all sit down and look at actually what the officer said without the benefit of your emotional state at that time, everyone wins. When there's a complaint of, you know, the officer did not give me my driver's license back, and you look on the camera and you're getting your driver's license back and you see that person drop it and they think it's in the cup holder, but instead it fell in between the seat, that's a win for everyone. And so I do think it's possible. I think it's best practice, by the way. I think that eventually the state legislatures are going to move to require all large police departments to have it. They've already done it in Illinois and a couple of other states. I like to be ahead of the curve. I really do. In police leadership, we have a saying, and it goes like this: do unto yourself before the federal government does. So if the federal government was to come in, which we hope they won't, and look at our practices, they're going to say, why don't you have body cameras? So it's something to think about. Wendy?
Morning, Chief. Thanks for joining us this morning. Thank you, Mike and Triad, for making this possible. I just have a quick question, since we were sort of talking about all the budget stuff. Is there a due date? We've kind of been wondering, is there a due date when all this will, like when your memo is due to the mayor? Is that in July? I know the capital budget comes first before the operating budget. And do we have any sort of timeline as to when the roller coaster ride starts?
We submitted the capital budget request. We're working on the operating budget that she wants, or Dave to Dave Schminicki. I believe it's July the 21st, but I don't have that committed to memory right now.
Okay, thank you.
Judy?
Yes. Hi, Chief Barnes and everyone at this wonderful meeting. It's so informative. And Chief, I've heard part of your story before, but I could hear it many times again. I just really enjoy hearing about how you grew up and how you got to where you are right now. We're so pleased to have you as our chief. It was just talked about regarding body cameras, and I was wondering if there is a council meeting coming up, maybe as soon as next week, where any of us could weigh in about how we feel about it, because we can all comment, we can write something, we can ask to speak, we can weigh in, opposed or we agree. we have so much that we can do as citizens. And I'm wondering if anyone here can let us know what we can do regarding the next step regarding body cameras. Thank you.
Yeah, I may defer to Paul on that, as he is an expert in all things city council. And sometimes I will be honest with you, I get a little confused about the different committees and councils. And so I think the Public Safety Review Committee, I think that's over and done with. I think they agreed not to accept or deny the report. I'm not quite sure what that means. And then the Common Council Executive Committee voted to accept the report. And I think the next step is that the pilot program, there's a resolution, I think, that authorizes the police department to spend some money to do a pilot program in the North District. So that comes next. And so I think that will be the next step. And Paul, if you have some procedural, if I'm wrong on that, you can certainly correct me.
Thanks. I can give you a little update. I understand talking to Alder Carter and Alder McKinney that the item was discussed at CCEC, the executive committee, and Council President Abbas has put it on the agenda for discussion and a possible vote on the at the next council meeting, which would be the day after 4th of July. Great timing. And, you know, we've been waiting for this for a long time. You probably know that a couple of years ago, we approved the pilot project funding of it in the budget, but it required a vote from the council again to authorize commencing it. The money's there, so it should be a simple vote up or down 11 individuals, and that's the way it's looking right now. So to answer your question, please write letters, sign up and support. If you're so inclined, speak. Just be cognizant of who you're dealing with on the opposition. You know that they are loud and they will come in large droves, and they feel a certain comfort in the anonymity of a Zoom meeting. So don't be intimidated. Just please write letters to your emails to your alder and all alders and to the mayor. The more the merrier. This has been a long time coming. I'm not going to discuss the machinations, but it does seem like the tide is turning and that there's a lot of positive publicity and support from many factions in the neighborhood, including some that previously were opposed. So yeah, please weigh in. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think someone, may have posted or something in the chat where you can send an email, and that may be a good idea as well. So I'll turn it back over to, I don't see him anymore. Oh, there's Mike. Okay.
I'm right here, Chief. Yeah. Are there any other questions? This is a great opportunity. If you have, we're right up against the border, but one other. Okay, well, seeing none, then I'll thank the chief very much. Chief, been a great meeting here today. I really enjoyed it. And of course, for everyone else, we'll be posting the recording of this on our Triads of Dane County YouTube channel. And so people can, of course, watch it again or for the first time if they weren't able to attend.